Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Vault Podcast. Jersey Joe back here. And look, I think after Sunday, everybody seems to be an expert on Odell Beckham Jr. Everybody seems to kind of know this guy. They know his character. They've been around him, and it could not be more false. As most people know, I'm the Giants beat reporter for 104.5, the Team ESPN Radio Albany. I've been at Odell's locker after every single game this season, and there has not been one time where I've ever questioned his character or I've ever questioned if he was a good team player or if I ever thought he was a troublemaker. I've always thought very highly of Odell. He's always given the media a great time. He's always been very patient. I think this is just a guy, and look, I've been there. I've talked to him. I really know who this player is, and I think that's the biggest thing that's being missed here is after Sunday's incident in the scuffle with Josh Norman. Look, was Odell wrong? Absolutely. Is it a suspension warranted? Probably. But I think when you look at it and you try to falsely label Odell based on that incident, it's just not fair because his track record to that point, there had never been anything like that. I was shocked because I had never seen something like this come from him before. But look, it's football. There's huge egos here. These are top-tier competitors. These are two of the best at their position. Sometimes things like that just happen. But I think for the most part, people who are trying to kind of label him as classless, as a troublemaker, it could not be further from the truth. I can tell you from my experiences being in every single locker, I've been in the locker room every time, and I've gone up to Odell and I've talked to him after every single game. There has never been an instant where I've felt that his character was lacking or that he was anything but a team player. If anything, he is the ultimate team player. And I think that's one of the things, look, I wish he kind of would have owned up to it a little bit more and given us a little bit more information about what was going through his head at the time. But I don't think that there's any question that Odell is a total team player all throughout the season. I mean, in that Patriots game, when he didn't get that touchdown catch, and it looked like he was going to come down with his second touchdown catch late in that game, he put the blame on him. All on him, not on anybody else. Didn't make excuses. He put the blame on him. And I think that's the kind of player that Odell is. It's not fair. A lot of the people who are talking, and even in the media, there's a lot of false people trying to portray him in a light that he's not. It's just not true. If you're in that Giants locker room, if you've been around Odell Beckham Jr., you know the kind of player he is, and it's just not what other people have been trying to make it out to be. But I just had to come on and put something out there because, again, I think once you start to kind of get in the media circle and you kind of start to see how the real things work out, I mean, there's perception and then there's reality. I'm telling you what the reality is. I mean, you look at what Joe Schmo posts on Facebook trying to say about Odell Beckham or some guy on Twitter who's just going out there and putting out what he thinks about it. It's not true. I'm inside. This is what Odell really is like now. Obviously, today it is Wednesday, and his ruling of the appeal will come out. And my thoughts on this have been, look, I mean, it was a crazy scene on Sunday. Being in that Giants press box, the events that were unfolding as the Norman-Odell Beckham battle was happening was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. But I thought since the second it happened, this is a two-way street. Norman is just as responsible as Odell Beckham was. And I think you look at the situation and you just got to say, there's no other way about it. I mean, Norman and the way that things started in the pregame warm-ups with Carolina players with their baseball bats, pointing them in the direction of Odell. There's no question that Norman has a big mouth, and it was mouthing off to Odell during the game. Again, I'm not defending what Odell did, but I'm saying Norman is just as responsible for making this thing turn into what it did as Odell did. Now, the 3 personal fouls in the game, Odell did talk about that during the game after the game at his locker and said, look, you never want to put your team in a position like that, but I've learned in life always second man gets caught. And I think that's probably very true, but I think in that case, look, again, Odell, not defending him, he was wrong in what he did, but I think Norman at the same time, Norman was taking shots at him whenever he could. I think the entire vibe around the Carolina team, again, they're carrying baseball bats around the field before the game, pointing them in his direction. There's a lot of talk that there were perhaps homophobic slurs issued in Odell's direction, and obviously he hears stuff like that a lot, and he's just kind of got to put it in the back of his head. But at the same time, I just think the way that things kind of progressed during that game, the way that it was so emotional, I think it all kind of led to a tipping point. And I don't make too big of a deal of it because this is sports. This is what it is. These are two ultra competitors, two of the best at their positions in the league. They're going to really go after each other. And I think, again, we look at this at the end of the day and how are we going to view this? Obviously, I don't think that there's much. I mean, does Odell have a good case for his appeal here? I think he kind of does. I mean, look, Norman got fined peanuts basically from what I just read, but I think for the most part, Odell's got a case here. I mean, look, there's video I was watching before I came in and did this of the players with the bats in the pregame warmups. I mean, that's indisputable. But I think at the same time, Norman's got to take a little bit of accountability for this too. If it was up to me, I've been clear about it all along. I think it's a two-way street in life and it's a two-way street in sports. Odell is responsible for a one-game suspension, and I would give Norman the same thing. I think they both lost their heads. I thought they both lost their composure. I think they both could have handled it much, much better. But again, I think the biggest point I wanted to make here and come on and talk about is the people who are trying to falsely label Odell, try to say that his character is lacking, trying to say he's classless or a diva, absolutely could not be further from the truth. If you're in that Giants locker room, you know what the reality is, and I've tried to explain that to you as best as I could. Again, if you're not there, you don't know. I am in there, and I'm telling you, Odell, I've never questioned it once. Odell is a good player. He's the guy I would like on my football team any day, and he's very young. He will learn from this. I think that's the biggest thing is Odell is always a guy. You could tell he's very insightful, always is looking to learn more, not just about football, but I think about life. He's always very insightful with his messages and the words that he tries to convey. I think there's no question that this is a big learning experience for him. Still such a young player in this league, and what he's done already is remarkable. He's going to be a special player in this game for a long time, and he will move on from this, and he will certainly learn from it. But until next time, Jersey Joe Archino here with another episode of the Sports Vault Podcast. We will be back next time. You folks have a good one, and we'll see you later.